Good morning, everyone. I see a few people have joined, and there are quite a few that are still waiting. Can somebody in the chat let me know if I'm audible, if everyone can hear me properly? Sweet. Okay. Let's wait 1 or 2 more minutes, and then I'm going to get started. Maybe in the meantime, for those wondering, what am I doing with the TV screen and stuff in the back? I'm in Korea and in a hotel room, so the internet might be a little bit flaky, hopefully not. But if it's the case, just drop a quick message in the chat if the connection interrupts at some point, and I'll definitely repeat again. All right. I see that there are quite a few people that have joined already, while quite a few are still waiting. But let's get started. The first part is introduction anyway. Let me know if everybody can see my screen. I'm going to share the full screen because I don't have a second screen set up in the hotel at the moment. So I'll not be able to see any of the conversations anymore. Can everybody see my screen? Quickly checking despite the inception mode. Yes, okay. There we go. All right. First things first. My name is Masood. I work as an experienced strategist at IO Digital. I've been working for about 15 years in the business. Different titles. Sometimes I'm called a CX strategist or an experienced strategist, sometimes an innovation consultant, sometimes a UX strategist, and so forth. Company I work for right now, it's called IO Digital. It's a leading digital agency headquartered in Belgium, but we have a global presence. We bring different types of talents together, from marketing to technology to content to creatives, data, strategy, all under one roof with one core belief that experience is the most important thing. Experience is everything. What we basically try to help our customers understand their target audience better and try to bring relevant brand experiences to their target audience. I'm going to keep this introduction about the company very short because obviously we're here to discuss something else. So this is not going to be a sales pitch. Very short. 2,000 plus experts spread across 12 campuses, present in 5 different countries already. We work across industries, 20 of them at the moment, with multiple core services that we offer. But I'm going to skip all of that. Some practical things. Drop your questions in the chat. Since I'm sharing it in full screen view, I'm not able to see the chat right now, but towards the end of the webinar, I'll take some of the questions from there and try to answer as best as I can. The recording is also going to be shared via email after the webinar has ended to all the participants. And if you want the slides at the end of the presentation, or maybe one of my colleagues, Yasna in the chat, can already share my email address with you. So please send me a DM. I'm more than happy to share the slides as well. All right. Let's get right into it because we're already 5 minutes ahead. So the ones that have joined, let's get going. Before we talk about the actual shift and before we talk about the e-commerce space and what's happening in that space, especially with the advent of AI and so forth, let's take a few steps back. The problem has always been there. People always have a need to look for information about a product, information about a service, information about how to do something, how to get somewhere, and so forth, right? It has always been a very basic human need. We don't know everything. We need to find information somewhere. What has changed over time is that the interface has evolved. And I'm going as far back as the ancient times. You would have one, let's say, a nobleman or somebody elder in the community, or somebody very knowledgeable that people would go to ask their questions, to ask for information about whatever. What then slowly happened over time is a big shift happened. We started documenting information. People then had a place to go and look up information, read about it, or even study it, and so forth. Then came the computers and the internet and so forth. What we then did was we digitized all this information, so people were not dependent on being in a physical place, having a scroll, having a book to read. People could find information online. But then over time, that information started getting a lot. Polluted maybe is the wrong word, but there was too much information. And then came the search engines where you can say, hey, this is a query. This is what I'm looking for. Here's a keyword, what I'm trying to find information for. And you had a search engine looking up the best possible answers for you. Where would you find those information? Indexing pages, looking through millions of websites and trying to find the right information for you. And what's happening now, it's a bit of, the way I see it is a bit of a closing of the loop as well. Now we have this elder, this ancient, knowledgeable person that knows a lot, that knows perhaps pretty much everything to a certain extent. We're still not there where everything is verifiable. We all have those phases where we are talking to a GPT and it's going into hallucination and whatnot. But essentially, the point is, it's a fundamental shift. Just like the last four shifts we talked about, is changing users' behavior. Instead of trying to ask keywords, we are talking. We are having a communication, an exchange of information where we ask questions, just like in our natural language, and it's giving responses back. And any such change obviously has a big impact on how users behave, how users um, actually start looking for information, finding information, making decisions. It's a change, habit changing, um, let's say, shift. And that's basically the first part that I want to talk about, setting the right context. We will talk about e-commerce and how it has an impact on perhaps even your roles in a way, all of our roles. But let's set the context a little bit further. Again, maybe it feels like an exaggeration, but this is towards an end of a browsing era, because for the last 20 years, we trained ourselves to understand how these digital touchpoints worked. We tried to understand how the machines work. We tried to follow their path. Think of your traditional navigation where you're going through a menu and going through a decision tree, or thinking about products, thinking about going under products and going to specific categories, or thinking about what that order flow looks like, and so forth. Basically, we tried to understand how that interface works for us to find the answer we are looking for. But search is hard work. Every time you're clicking on something, it's a decision tree in your head. What happens next? What do I expect after this? If I'm filling out the form, these are the things I need to do, and then what happens next, and so forth. Every layer we added with a good intention, right? With what was available within the context of the digital touch points that were available to us. It also brought additional complexity towards how users found information. We added more and more complexity over time. And now today, I'm sure everybody here has a similar experience. When your customer is unable to find something on your platform, be it your website, be it the applications, be it whatever digital touch point you're exposing towards a customer, if they can't find that information, what is the first thing that comes to your mind? Whose problem is it? Is it a UX challenge? Is it a content challenge? Should the webmaster be looking at it? Who's exactly responsible for a customer not being able to find what they're looking for on your platform? And that's essentially the root of what we initially saw, right? There's an inherent need to find something, and your platform is the way people are looking for that or finding that information. Um, Larry Tesler, I don't know if everybody in the room knows. He's one of the he's the founder of, or not founder, but the person who invented cut, copy, paste, something we always use since we have started using computers. He has a law that, or how do you say, a principle that he talks about, which says every system has an inherent amount of complexity, and that cannot be removed. It cannot be hidden. It has a complexity, be it from the very ancient time where you had to look for that nobleman, to the search engine optimization challenges, to finding information architecture challenges within your website. How will we help people find the right content? Is the content answering their questions, and so forth? There's always a complexity. But the question, the most important question is, who should deal with this complexity, the user or the system? And I think the answer we all can agree is that the system needs to absorb that complexity. So with the advent of AI, with the way is being adopted with GPTs and LLMs and everything, how can our systems absorb more of this complexity and make it more easier for the users? How that expectations are changing. Because again, like I said, in the coming years, it's a fundamental shift. It's a habit-changing shift where customers will have even more expectations from their digital platforms to understand what their needs are. And we have been talking about anticipating needs. Perhaps this is the moment that this can come to life. And I'm going to also show you some of those examples of how this is already happening. So the shift is happening already. We need to have a clear plan for that. And to make the case even stronger, there are some stats. I'm going to go about it one at a time, and they're all very, very relevant to how the e-commerce game works. There's a significant decline, 25%, in traditional search volume that is predicted for 2026 already, as users are shifting more and more towards AI. So instead of using your traditional search options like Google and whatnot, they're shifting towards AI-enabled searches. There's a high conversion as well when the traffic is coming from an AI-referred source. 42% higher conversion, and I'm sure this is only going to grow. And then from SEMrush, there's already a year-on-year increase, 800% in referrals from LLM models towards websites. So even the traffic coming to your website is coming from LLMs or the GPTs and whatnot. And then lastly, 60% of brands will start using agentic AI. We will talk about it towards the last two shifts in our, or especially the last shift in our conversation later today. But think of it like this. In an agentic AI world, the one-to-one interaction can be completely between your system and an agent, maybe with zero human intervention as well. And this is a reality that's also going to come. So how are we going to prepare for situations where your customer is not really a user, your visitor to your website or whatever digital platforms is not really your actual target audience, but an agent doing that? How prepared are we for that? The first thing to remember is we have the answers. You have created, in the last 20 years, we have created a lot of content, a lot of information about our products, our offerings, supporting manuals, FAQs, technical specifications, or whatever specifications there that goes with your product and service. There's a lot of knowledge sitting already below the surface. The problem is we don't have that information. The problem is the time to value. How quickly can a user get to the solution that he's looking for by describing what he's looking for, instead of having to look and look and look? Because again, this is something we might all experience in some way or the other. I've used a B2B example here, but my point that I wanted to make here was that the journey is breaking. We need to start understanding that search, like I said earlier, is hard work. So when somebody asks, and this is a B2B example where somebody's looking for a liquid nitrogen cylinder for their food grade packaging, they're asking a specific question, and then what we show them today is that there are 2,400 results. Look for the right answer yourself. While the expectation is, I want you to understand my problem and show me the solution, not search among these thousands of results or hundreds of results. To talk about this more in detail, I'm going to point out 5 specific shifts, all moving in the same direction, which is away from platforms that push complexity on the customer, pushing the workload towards the customer to search, to find, to figure out, towards absorbing that and finding them solutions. After the first 3 shifts, I'm going to show 2 real examples as well. One that is already live, and one that shows a little bit of a sneak peek of what the future may look like. Again, not something fluffy or imaginative, something that is actually a working prototype today, might not be ready to be implemented at scale today, but it's very much realistic already. So 2 examples that we will talk about after shift 3, but the 5 shifts that I'm talking about, first one, going from keywords to understanding the intent of the user through intent-based conversations, or capturing those intents through conversations. Second, we have our catalogs, filters, product portfolios towards guiding them in their discovery and finding the right solution. Then the third one is how the experiences are adaptive towards unique user needs, something that we have always talked about, but is becoming a reality today, where based on your intent, based on your conversations, based on your specific requirements, the interface changes, adapts to your specific need. Fourth, and this is maybe what's coming in the future, hopefully in 2 to 3 years, is how this commerce will become more agentic and less human intervention. And lastly, it's a bit more of how your architecture needs to be ready for a shift like this. And again, we're going to talk about composable architecture here. I believe you're not able to see my slides anymore. I'm going to stop the screen and start again to see if that works. Can you tell me if you see my screen again? Is the slide deck visible? Okay, looks like it's visible again. If you haven't seen this part, this was the 5 shifts I was talking about. I'm not going to repeat all of them because we're going to go through one at a time anyway. Let's start from the first shift. Again, if for some reason the screen sharing stops, just drop me a message and I will immediately check that again. So the first one, I think this is quite straightforward because we talked about how the search is changing, how people are not just looking on Google anymore, or search engines in general anymore, but actually asking questions to GPTs. So going from keywords to intent-based conversations. Today, we used to focus more on how can we rank our page as high as possible within the search engines? How can we then earn those clicks so the users come to our platforms? And then once they are, we hope they find the right answer, right? But with the changing model, we also need to take into account, can AI draw its answers from the content that we provide on our platforms? And again, to make this case even stronger, 80% of Google searches now, they trigger an AI overview already, which means in some cases, users are not even going to click on anything and come to your platform. They're trying to find their answers already within that overview. So the search result page is now actually becoming a destination as well. So what does it mean? If our content isn't structured for AI to synthesize, to grasp the answers from, to position you as the right answer for the question of the customer, it's very likely that the customer never even finds you. And more importantly, we will not even know that they were looking for us. So how do we capture those audiences, right? So again, from an SEO point of view, we used to help machines index our content. So when the user is looking for that information, they can type their keywords. And because we were trying to go for those rankings, position ourselves higher, we were able to earn clicks. But with GEO, what is going to happen? We need to try to find or create content, optimize our content in a way that we become the source of authority that AI draws its answers from and tries to position ourselves higher. Because unlike in the previous times where you say running shoes as a keyword, people are starting to ask which running shoe is best for flat feet because I have flat feet. I don't have that little arch. I usually run 5 kilometers twice a week. And you're expecting these GPTs to give you those results, right? So it's very, very important to try to understand the intent and try to optimize our content in a way that it can answer the question that the user is actually asking for. What is very important is to remember that, again, a study by, I'm forgetting the source, I'm going to add it before I send the PowerPoint here. 68% of customers won't retry after a bad AI experience because once they don't find the right answer, this is their prompt. And if they're not able to get the right answer, inaccurate answers carry the same consequence as no answers. They will not come back for a second experience. So what I would like you to do or take home as the one key thing that we do in the coming week, let's say, is to think of your most important product category and think about what questions would your customers ask to find that specific product. And is your current content answering those questions? Not ranking on the website, not the right keywords. If they ask those questions, will we show up in one of these GPTs or LLMs? And then the impact on our role. The role is shifting as well. Just being an SEO specialist isn't enough. We need to start also being the conversation architects. What does it mean? We need to stop only optimizing for keywords, and maybe perhaps stopping is a harsh way of seeing it because you still need the SEO, but you also need to start optimizing your content to then become the source that AI draws from for the right answers. So you write for questions that the users would actually ask and not keywords. For instance, again, an example, what gate lock works for a sliding garage door, not stainless gate lock for B2B. And you start measuring how often do you appear in those answers and not just page positions. So again, quick action to take. Think of your top product categories, product pages, and try to see if there was a natural language question. Are we able to answer? Is the content already answering those questions? That's the first shift. The second is going from catalogs to guided discovery. And again, something in e-commerce we have talked about for a long time, right? Today, what we have is catalogs. There are filters, advanced filters. There is a way or an intent to try to understand what kind of a user he is and try to show him relevant products and so on. But in the new model, you would try to understand the problem and the platform finds the solution for him. There's an example coming up to make it more concrete as well. But to make it more clear why this is important, today what happens is you're on a category page, you filter, you compare different products, you go back, you filter again. Customer is doing a lot of hard work, right? He's trying to find whether there is a product that fits his needs. What it leads to in a B2C environment is a lot of frustration because maybe the product is still not the right product for him because the way the system is organized doesn't fully understand what he's really looking for. And in B2B, it's actually much bigger. It's a supply chain issue. It can become a really significant issue because the wrong product can lead to a failed, for example, installation or a failed fit, then a return order, lost time, and so forth. So your product catalogs or categorization, it comes with a cost, especially even more in a B2B context. And in fact, in a B2C as well, because you lose loyalty there. So how is your role shifting here? Going from a catalog manager towards a journey designer, where you treat the gap between how we are naming things, not because often you have a product, especially again in a B2B context, with perhaps 20 different variants or versions of the same product or with small deviations, right? And we often use a lot of technical terminology here as well. What if you were to stop treating that in terms of how you name them based on how those products are defined internally and start seeing this gap as how your customers describe what they're looking for. And you start seeing this as a design problem and not a search problem. You stop measuring how complete your catalog is, and you start measuring how far does a customer come with his search before they give up, before they say, I'm not able to find what I'm looking for. And again, the action to take there is to pull your zero result search report, see what are the top 10 failure points where people have asked something in whatever, be it keyword, be it a natural language that the customer uses, and unable to find any results. And that will already tell you where the breakpoints are, where we are not able to understand the intent and match it with the right products. So what we should do as a journey designer is design paths from the need or the problem of the user to the product, and not just naming the SKUs, completing the catalog, making the filters work better, and so forth. Then the third shift, before I go to an example, the one size fit all interfaces are not going to be enough anymore. There are adaptive experiences already showing up online. And I will show you one in a second as well. So the one interface for everyone, that doesn't work. The platform needs to adapt to who I am, what my intent is, and what am I looking for. Because if you just have the same homepage, the same navigation structure, the same content hierarchy, the same product offering for everyone, that's going to be different for different types of users. Again, a B2B example, think of an installer versus an architect versus a bulk buying dealer and so forth. They all have completely different needs from the platform, and the way they look for information is going to be very, very different. And this is already cracked for a while in the B2C space, right? If you think about Netflix, everyone's homepage looks different. If you think of Spotify, everybody's Discover Weekly looks different. For them, personalization, that's bare minimum. They absolutely need it. B2B is slower. However, there's a big cost associated with that. But I'm going to quickly show you now, to bring the three shifts together, one real life example, something that we have built for Locatie Spontanel or .nl. It's a website where you can find venues for different types, different needs. And this particular experience adapts based on what the user is looking for. I'm going to try to show you all three shifts that we talked about, going from keywords to intent-based conversations, going from product catalogs to making something very personalized for them, and finally, how the interface also adapts over time. What is also important to remember is it's about generating based on what you already have, but tailoring that experiences towards user needs, which is very instant. You type something and you get responses. This also helps with SEO and GEO. And once these experiences have been created, they are reusable as well. I hope the video works, but if it doesn't, do give me a shout in the chat. I will try to replay it again. I'm going to start the video. There's no audio, but I'm going to do a voiceover. So here you have their landing page, somebody that's looking for a Congress venue, for example, near the station in The Hague. And this is what you see today, but let's try to start actually typing something. The first thing you see is they're typing something, sustainable venue close to the beach. You already also see popular searches or different categories and so on. But let's just say that's the question they ask. It's going to start looking for venues that match that specific intent. It has created a page now with different categories. The products are the products, right? You already have those products, but it's starting to stitch them together with different USPs here. Sustainable meetings and events, into the wild as well, which is also sustainable, different ones that are showing up. And then when you say view all, it will create a custom landing page with that title, some copy that has been created, which matches the intent, and you still have your filters, just because obviously there's more to the question than just saying you need venues, you need for 50 people, for example, it needs to be closer to something, and so on and so forth. But what it does in the background is once you have created these are stored as well. These are reusable. Next time someone is asking a similar question, the system knows that it has already generated something, and it will immediately start showing you those pages. Then it also helps you with your SEO, because now when somebody's typing that question, even in a typical search bar, That specific page, which was created on the fly, because that page didn't exist before, it was created by AI based on the intent, that is indexed as well. You can immediately find it. And to top it off, even in that AI overview, over time, if you're able to build credibility and authority, you're also going to start becoming the preferred response, even in that AI overview. As you can see here, this is a different question. I had to use a real one that was used before, which was in Dutch. And then you can see that this is already listed, and it's taking you directly to that specific page, right? Because with the intent, if you start again with just locatie.nl, it's not going to capture the intent that the user has. You need to go to that specific page. And that's what the beauty of doing something like this is, that it understands the intent and matches it with the right solution. That's the first part. And again, to sum it up, this is essentially how the behavior has changed. Before, people were searching, clicking, reading, using SEOs or search platforms. Today, they're prompting, they're getting an answer, and sometimes they're leaving at the answer or going to that specific page which captures the content and the context. And tomorrow, and we will talk about it in the next shift, is going towards more autonomous, agentic world, where perhaps there is no user involved. The user gives the agent a goal, and the agent goes and does it on its own. Is the website ready for that? We're going to talk about it in a second, but I have one more really interesting example to share with you. Again, 3 shifts, all in one direction. They're all relevant to that one platform, be it your website, be it any of your digital touch points. You already have most of these pieces today. It's more about how you optimize them to address the intent of the user. I'm going to show you an example which is not fully live today, but this is also not a concept. It's a working prototype. This is where it's heading. It talks about, again, the first shift, chat input reads intent. That's the conversation layer. System surfaces relevant products that are tailored or guided by what the intent was. That's discovery. And then the third one, interface restructures around your history. Just like we saw earlier, it's stored, but now you will see the entire experience adapt based on your previous queries. And again, most of these pieces exist today. So this is not really a concept video, a real working prototype, but it's not ready for scale yet. It's for a fashion brand called Filson. It's a brand that is an American one, sells outdoor and a lot of clothing material. We're going to see again another video. I hope the video plays again as well. So what are you looking for? Very similar, starting with a conversation. What's the story behind Filson? You have a quick answer, but in the meantime, it's building a page below as well. And as you can see here, it creates a timeline, gives very detailed answers. But here's the very interesting part. It's also showing you heritage jackets. Understanding the context, somebody's interested in the story behind Filson, maybe these are the most relevant products. How do returns work? Is it free? Again, you have a quick answer while the rest of the answer loads, tailored to your specific question, and then you have the FAQs, easy returns, and so forth. Let's also do another search. Do you have any collaborations? Again, quick answer was yes, but the page has changed, exclusive collaborations, and now it shows you some of those collaboration-based products, also showing you the previous one. I don't know if you noticed, it was a bit fast, I think, but it also showed those heritage jackets in the bottom. What is your warmest jacket? Very natural language question, right? It's picking up, it's creating these on the fly. It didn't have a page that said warmest jacket. This is also super interesting. I'm going to pause for a second. It's also tagging your intents. Here it says warm, heritage, collaboration. These are some of the things that is what the user is looking for. And we're going to see in a second how this adapts the future experience as well. But super interesting to see how it's starting to capture all that intent in your session. And now your homepage, when you go back, it's curated based on your search. You have featured collaborations all the way on the top. You have warm wool jackets. You have why choose Filson as an outerwear. There's a small paragraph that explains the heritage, and then the heritage questions. And in the bottom, it's also showing you your popular questions. The first one being, the return policy and so forth. This is, like I said, not something that is far off from what is possible today. It's a work in progress, and very soon this is how the experience are going to start being more adaptive to your intent, capturing those tags from your previous searches, from what you have done on the website, and start tailoring even the way navigation works, even the way the homepage can completely restructure on the fly for you. So from a website manager, the role is shifting towards an ecosystem orchestrator, which means we stop asking, what do most people need? We're not creating it for an average audience or most people. We are creating an experience for that person visiting the website right now, understanding what they need specifically. You design for multiple audiences on the same platform simultaneously, not in clusters and categories, but for their specific need. Not one experience that tries to serve everyone, but something that tries to serve their specific needs. And again, pull up your zero result, see where they're heading, and see where the user's the natural language fails to provide an answer. Of course, the best interface is no interface at all if they could get an answer right away. And again, if we build a little bit further towards what I was referring to as agentic AI, imagine a scenario, say 5 years down the line, when you're taking a flight, your flight is delayed, but then you don't need to open an app, try to figure out how it impacts your car pickup, how it impacts your restaurant reservation, how it impacts your hotel booking, and so on, that all work in the background. That's what agentic AI would look like, where an agent is doing all of that work for you, where you're giving it a few constraints or laying out some ground rules, and it's going to perform tasks autonomously. That world is coming, but these are all how we build up towards that. The Shift 4 is specifically talking about that world where it's more agentic commerce, because your next customer, it might not even be human. It might be an agent performing the task on behalf of the human. And again, the biggest thing, AI agents, they don't just browse like a normal user would. Today, users, they take a brief, they look at the product, they compare multiple products, go back, look at it again, and so on. But again, no human might visit you in the future. Or in the B2B, it might be just monitoring stocks, automatically reordering. Think of the most simple things like reordering paper for your fax machine or for your copy machine and so on. The agents reads your data and they decide. They don't go to the homepage. They will not be targeted using campaigns. There's no ambiguity. There's no benefit of doubt whether this is the right product or not. They make decisions autonomously. So again, a question to ask ourselves today, if an agent existed today and it tried to navigate and make a transaction on our platform, can it do it today? Not whether the experience is going to be good, not whether it's a beautiful experience or not, whether it can happen at all, because that world is coming very fast. Agents don't respond to design. They respond to consistency in taxonomy. They respond to whether that product data is structured or not, whether there are APIs available for them to be able to do the transaction autonomously, whether the content is machine readable or not. And again, they don't come back, or they don't give you the benefit of the doubt like the user would and say, maybe I missed something. Let me go back and check that again. Or maybe this was the right product and I didn't understand it very well. No, if they don't find it, they just leave and they find those answers on a different platform with a different provider, so to speak. So not only are we going to be a journey designer, which we talked about in Shift 2, but we're also going to try to understand what an agent-ready architecture looks like. We will still design for human behavior, but we will also try to design for agents acting on their behalf. Same outcome, but then again, very different ways of navigating and finding that information, right? Because the user can define a certain set of rules, a threshold, say, this is my price point, this is what I need in order to make a decision, go figure. And the agent goes based on those rules, tries to look for the information that matches, and already perhaps even goes as far as making the decision for them as well. So most important, you treat data quality, API structures, and now it is going to go a little bit technical, but we only have one more shift left. So I'll take the liberty of going a little bit technical here, because that's how the agent will look at it, right? Not a beautiful user experience, but an agent experience where quality of the data, the exposing of APIs, the understanding of how taxonomy works and so forth is going to be very important. So the question to ask or the action to take in your role today is to pick one purchase journey of one of your target audiences that they perhaps make often or repeatedly, and write down what rules would they make, right? Give it structure, give it a set of constraints and say, this is how our users might be making decisions. Now look at your platform and see if it was an agent doing it on its own, based on those set of rules, can it complete the transaction? How far can it go in making certain decisions? And that will tell you how ready we are for the fourth shift, the agentic commerce that's coming as well. And the last one, it's perhaps a little bit technical, but it's also important because this will define how the platforms are going from a monolithic architecture towards something very composable, very bite-sized, very independent from each other. Because today what we do is we have created this platform that does everything under one roof, but it also is holding everything hostage. And what do I mean by that? Some of you might be able to relate to some of these challenges. When you're trying to change something, let's say you want to make small changes in the way the sales channel works, it's a project for 6 months. If you want to change something in the checkout flow, yeah, it breaks other integrations. And again, checkout flow is an example. It could be somewhere else. You want to do something else, you can't because it's hard coded or baked into the core of the experience, right? So all of these challenges are because it's one monolithic architecture. What if it was more fragmented? Imagine there was one source of truth for all your product data, not scattered across different systems, one single source of truth. There is one platform that is keeping all the information about your customer data points. Everything that you gather is in one touch point. And then the front end is where you can completely be flexible. You can keep adapting those experiences without ever having to touch what is happening in the backend. Making it more composable means making it more independent, where you can switch something and replace it with the state of the art without having to impact all the other stuff. And again, I know it's a bit technical. We can talk about it. If you have more questions, do shoot me a DM. We can talk about it more in detail. But the more important thing is you're not just a platform owner. You're also trying to become a tech fluent strategist. You're not just looking at managing that platform. You're starting to ask the question whether every part within your architecture is still the right tool for the job. The checkout flow, the form that the user is filling, whatever different types of tools that you're using for each of these purposes, are they the best? Are they the right tools? And are they creating interdependencies between each other? So you can have those real conversations with your IT teams about whether this is the most optimal architecture to have. Because again, like I said, the agentic AI will need to be able to communicate, transact with your platforms completely independently, being able to find information, being able to make decisions. So you need to keep up and have the least dependent architecture possible. So you identify today, the one thing to do is to identify one integration gap that is creating friction in your customer journey and try to see how easy it is to replace that. And that will also give you an assessment of where your platform readiness is for an agentic commerce world. Those are the 5 key shifts. Important to remember, agents don't respond to design. They read your data. They expect structured product data, consistent taxonomy, and so forth. Nothing new that I've already not said. And then the closing thought, and this is where I will leave you with, is to reflect back on the original question. What complexity in our customer's life are we able to absorb? Our platform is able to absorb and solve or find solutions for, even before the user has to ask why, by being able to anticipate. And lastly, a recap of the 5 different shifts, the roles that are today and the roles of tomorrow. From keywords to intent-based conversations, not just being an SEO specialist, but actually being a conversation architect, so we can understand the intents better and map them to the right solutions, to the right products, the right offerings, the right content. From static catalogs to guided discovery, so not just being a catalog manager who focuses on completeness and accuracy of the catalog, but being a journey designer who understands how users go from a problem towards your right product fit. From one size fits all to adaptive experiences, again, the entire interface can adapt based on the user's intent and need. So not just being a website manager, but being an ecosystem orchestrator that understands the different touch points and different data sources and different intents of the users. The rise of agentic commerce, it's already happening. So don't just be a journey designer, which we talk about in Shift 2, but also an agent-ready architect, which then comes to the last part. In order to do that, you also need to have a little bit of understanding of how the technical platform or the backend works and the relationship between the backend and the front end, to try to also have a bit of an understanding of the different intricacies of your platform architecture. So you can also ask the questions, are we having the right architecture in place in order to solve those challenges of our users today? Voila, that's it. If there are questions, leave them in the chat. I'm going to stop sharing so I can see if there is anything here. Yes, I see Filson was impressive. Again, big disclaimer, it doesn't happen today. It's happening. It's coming very soon. But there are enough pieces of the puzzle available today already for this to be a reality. Nick, you have a question as well. Instead of trying to think about what questions our customers would ask, could we not get those questions from a specific demographic from Google? Yes, you can also do that. You can also look at the actual user behavior on your platform as well. I think you will find a lot of information from there too. It's also a very hot topic in GEO. How do we actually understand what our users are looking for? How do we know what keywords or what, not just keywords, but key questions they use actually, not even on your website, but even in GPTs. So we can talk about it more in detail, but do send a DM and we can pick up more on that conversation. But there's a way to also understand what is the chatter going on that could be relevant to your product, your relevant offering, and how can we start adapting to that. All right. Any other questions? I'm quickly reading through. Okay. I don't see any other. I see a couple of users still typing. Nick, I see your question as well. Maybe it's going to take quite some time and maybe answered better with some of our GEO specialists as well. Like I said, I'm an experienced strategist, so I look at the entire ecosystem. But if we talk about technical product data that we could update, maybe it's a very interesting conversation to have with our GEO specialists as well. I'm happy to pick up on that conversation with you. I don't know if we have your email. I'm sure we will have your email because we will be sending you. Maybe I can send you a short email after, Nick. You can find your zero web results lot. Your question from Lot was, when the users have asked something and they did not find an answer, where can we find this information? Maybe you should ask your webmaster or somebody managing your analytics to show you the zero search results of your website today. And there you can find already what are the type of questions they asked that didn't lead anywhere, that showed a zero result. And that would be your starting point to say, okay, this is where the dead ends are. The users are looking for this information, and there could be two answers. We have a product or an offering that fits their need or their question, but we're not able to map it, or it's the wrong question. We're not able to answer that because that's not what we offer. which is also fine. And then you can choose to say whether we address that kind of a question or not. But again, it's a conversational, how do you say, way of looking at how to respond to those zero result pages. I hope that answers your question. Super. I think we have covered all the questions. I see one more question coming from one of the participants. I'll wait for another minute. Okay, nice, great. Thank you very much. It's always hard to really go in depth for each of these shifts, but if there are still open questions, if there's something that you want to actually see more in depth, I'm more than happy to set up a different call and actually show you some of the work, which today, unfortunately, I can't show because some of this is also client work that we are not allowed to, but we can talk more in detail if there's appetite for that or there's more follow-up questions. All right, then I will end the event and you will all receive a recording of that. And if somebody really wants also to have the PowerPoint, please send me an email. The email should be in the chat already. Yes, I see Yasna has already shared my email and my LinkedIn. So more than happy to take calls, take emails or answer them there. Thank you very much, everyone. Have a lovely rest of your day. And hopefully we see each other again. Bye-bye.